Hi, welcome back to Everyday Behavior with Dr. Marianne. This is the fourth video in our series this month on motivating or establishing operations. So during this video, this is a continuation of the previous video on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it also is a further discussion of how in the school environment or even in a religious or faith-based environment, or if you are in a situation where you can provide additional resources to families or parents, how can you provide additional resources to meet those basic needs? As I mentioned in the previous video, basic needs need to be met in addition to a behavior plan. They are not the sole behavior plan, and some behavior plans in isolation will not fully meet the continuum of a student's needs. And so behavior plans should be a holistic approach where you're looking at all of the student's needs, whether that's with sleep, hygiene, basic care, food, shelter, safety, and love or emotional attention, emotional support, but they also should meet that direct feedback of behavior consequence relationship, so that operant conditioning. So when we're looking at basic needs, there is a resource to accompany this on our Facebook page if you follow us on Everyday Behavior with Dr. Marianne on Facebook. However, some of the additional ideas are things that you can do for extra lunch, extra breakfast, weekend food backpacks. A lot of times people will say, well, I'm not going to provide anything additional for one student that isn't available to all students in the class. However, this student that we're talking about in particular may not have access to the same resources that the other children in the class have. So most of the children in the class probably have adequate food at home and throughout the day. But all children in your class are not equal. And so some children in your class may not have that adequate food in the home environment. And so you may need to, in order to make services equal, provide additional resources or something different for that particular student in the school environment or in the aftercare environment. So can you provide them an extra breakfast, or ensure that you work with the cafeteria staff, regardless of what time the student arrives, that they have access to breakfast? Can you work with the staff in the school to make sure that we have a snack available to that student, maybe morning and afternoon, depending on their needs, because their only nutritional input for the entire day may come in that school environment? Can you work on extra lunch or seconds at lunch? Can you work with local partners, local food banks, or religious organizations to provide a food backpack to take home with them on the weekends so that they can supplement that nutritional input at home on the weekends? This is a commonplace intervention in some schools now. However, it isn't available to all schools. And so if this isn't something available in your environment or in your neighborhood, is there a local partner that you can work with, whether that's for multiple students or a single student, to ensure that their basic nutritional needs are being met? Can you look at clothing resources? So clothing resources aren't just access to clothes that fit, like a coat or shoes. However, clothing resources can be things like, do we have a washer and dryer at the school where we can assist the student with their laundry so that they don't access or experience peer rejection due to having dirty clothing or having smelly clothing? Can you give them access to a shower, a toothbrush, soap, and deodorant discreetly during the day so that they can access a school locker room or some other facility on the school grounds where they can meet those hygiene needs? Again, so that they don't access that peer rejection. How can you do this discreetly so that you're not like, hey, Johnny, it's time to go take your shower now? But how can you allow them that time so that they can access those basic needs to prevent that peer rejection, and so that they feel as if they have access to this basic need? If they don't have adequate water, or if they need additional whatever that is, milk or water. I'm not going to say juice or soda pop because I don't feel like that's a basic need. But how can you provide them that access to clean water during the school day that they may not have access to at home? How can you give them that place to rest or place to sleep, place to take a nap, where they have a blanket, a pillow, and a quiet location? This seems so counterintuitive to school. Why would we miss part of science or social studies or music or PE, one of these core subjects, in order to get sleep? But if the student is engaging in behavioral agitation, or if they are literally falling asleep at their desk, well, they're not accessing it anyways. So how can we look at the school day so that we can structure the school day to allow for a rest time, a nap time, or some time where they can sleep? And I'm not talking about just for kindergartners or first graders, but I'm talking about for fifth graders or eighth graders that maybe do not access sleep at home because there's conflict or other environmental variables that are preventing them from getting that adequate sleep at night. If it's just due to electronics or video games or staying up all night to engage in preferred activities, how can you also simultaneously work with parents to ensure that the child has access to the sleep recommendations by the American Academy of Pediatrics? This may involve a referral to the school nurse, to a school social worker, or a school counselor to further address these needs with the family. But you also want to make sure that those safety needs are met, including those medical needs. And so sometimes parents don't realize that counseling services may be covered by their state funded insurance. They may not realize what services are covered, or they may not know how to access those resources. So again, this is where a school social worker or a school counselor can help them to partner with their local state agencies to meet those basic medical needs that may be there. We all have had tummy problems at some point in time in our life. And you know, when your tummy is upset, that often you have a hard time thinking or focusing, or you feel uncomfortable or discomfort. And sometimes parents or teachers don't realize the impact of GI problems, specifically constipation, on children's behavior. So if a child does not have an adequate diet, adequate access to water or fiber, then they may have GI problems, or they may have an inherent GI problem that is impacting their medical functioning. And so you want to make sure that, if necessary, you're helping to link parents with the resources, not by saying you need to do this or providing a referral, but just making sure that parents are aware of this. One way to do this without getting yourself in a sticky situation as a school is to have a list of resources on your school webpage that talks about what are the local resources. And so then, rather than saying you should do this, you can say, why don't you check out these additional resources, or let me make you aware of our page here that has these resources. If the family doesn't have internet or a computer, you may have to assist them in locating that or print it off for them so that they can see what is on your webpage without saying do this and then being put in a liable situation where you as a district have to pay for that service. Additional things that you can do is refer to local churches or religious organizations for clothing, school supplies, food. They often have part of their budget available for community assistance or benevolence. And so how can you refer them to a local organization that may be willing to provide those services for all individuals of the community, not just members of the church? So these are some additional resources. I encourage you to follow us on Facebook for some additional ideas and additional perspectives by liking or following us at Everyday Behavior with Dr. Marianne. I also encourage you to click the subscribe button below, the red subscribe button, for additional videos and notifications when new videos are released. Thank you and have a wonderful day.